And focus. Selective. There we go. Alright, so vertex negative b over 2a. B is 3, so we need a negative 3. 2 times a, which is a negative 2. So we get negative 3 over negative 4, which gives us 3/4. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 3/4. Your vertex is 3/4 comma something. Now we figure out the something by plugging 3/4 into the problem. So negative 2 times 3/4 squared plus 3 times 3/4 minus 2. 3/4 squared is 9/16. So it's negative 2 times 9/16. 3 times 3/4 gives us 9/4. And then we have a minus 2 at the end of the problem. So negative 2 times 9/16 is going to give us negative 18/16. Then we have our 9/4, and then we have our minus 2. So 9/4, and then our minus 2 over 1, once it focuses. So common denominators would be 16. So keep that a negative 18. To make a 4 into 16, you multiply by 4. So therefore we do 9 times 4, which gives us 36. 1 to 16, we multiply by 16, so 2 times 16 gives us 32. So we have negative 18 plus 36, which is 18. 18 plus 32. So that gives us a total of 18 take away 32 is a, just to be sure, should give us a 14. We're going to divide by 2. Hello? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No. Okay, yeah, I don't need them. All right, what? Okay, so negative 7/8. So 3/4, negative 7/8. All right, next one. Again, we can do negative b over 2a. So negative 6 over 2 times 1, which gives us negative 6 over 2, which gives us negative 3. So x equals negative 3 as our x-coordinate, or our axis of symmetry. Our vertex is negative 3 comma something. So we plug in the negative 3. So negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 minus 12. Negative 3 squared is 9. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. Take away our 12. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Negative 9 minus 12 gives us negative 21. So negative 3, negative 21 is our vertex. On number 7, our b value, there is no b value. So that means it's going to be 0 over 2 times our a, which is 2/7, which it doesn't really matter, because 0 divided by a number is going to give you 0. So therefore, your axis of symmetry is x equals 0. Your vertex, you're going to plug 0 in. When we plug it in, 0 times itself is 0 times 2/7 is still 0. Take away 4 puts you at negative 4. So 0, negative 4 would be your vertex. Number 8, for this equation, we need to find the range. This is a frowny face parabola. So we just need to figure out, we know it's going to stop hitting y values at the very top, at its vertex. So we're going to have to find the vertex again. So it's negative b, so b is a negative 12, so negative b is positive 12 over 2 times a, which is negative 3. So that's going to be 12 over negative 6, which gives us negative 2. So our vertex is at -2 comma something. To get the something, we put -2 in the problem. So -3 times -2 squared minus 12 times -2 plus 2. -2 squared is 4. So we have -3 times 4 minus 12 times -2 plus 2. -3 times 4 is -12. -12 times -2 is positive 24. And then we have a plus 2. -12 plus 24 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. So that means this point, -2, 14, is at the top of our parabola. So that's the highest y value it hits, and the y value is 14. It hits everything under it because this was a frowny face parabola. So that means y is less than or equal to 14. That is your range, because it hits all the y's under 14. Domain are your x values. Well, this thing keeps going on forever and getting forever fat, therefore it's all x values for your domain. 9, the combined area of two squares is 65 square feet. The sides of the longer square are 3 more than the sides of the smaller. So let's start off with the small square. We'll make that x by x. Then it says the longer square are 3, and here's the key word, more. Not 3 times, but 3 more. So that means your dimensions are x plus 3 and x plus 3. So it says, what is the length of each side of the square, which means we're going to have to solve for x. Well, it tells us the combined area is 65, so we actually have to find the areas. So the area of this one is x times x, which is x squared. The area of this one is x plus 3 times x plus 3, which is x squared plus 6x plus 9. Because you're just doing the distributive property with this, or you can use your Punnett square, however you like to do your multiplication. It says the combined area, so we are going to take these two and add them together. So x squared plus 6x plus 9. That's 2x squared plus 6x plus 9. And it says it equals 65 square feet. So this equation has to give us 65. So 2x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 65. So we have x squareds and x's in the same problem, just like we did in the other section. We have to make the equation equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 65 from both sides. So 2x squared plus 6x. And we have 9 take away 65, which puts us at negative 56 equals 0. We could go straight to the quadratic formula, but the first thing we should really try to do is factor, and they do have a GCF. 2 goes into all of them. So I'm going to pull out the 2. So this becomes x squared plus 3x, and 56 divided by 2 gives us 28. So a minus 28 equals 0. Then from here, we could again we could go straight to the quadratic formula, or we could continue to try to factor. Looks like it's a diamond, so we need two things that will add to give us a 3 and multiply to give us a negative 28. So we know it's got to be a positive and a negative, because you're multiplying to get a negative. Well, it'll be 7 and 4. Because positive 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. Positive 7 plus negative 4 is a positive 3. So it's x plus 7, x minus 3 equals 0. Now we can solve for the x's. Either this parentheses was 0, if x plus... Thank you, 4. It said 4, but put 3. So for this one to be 0, x would equal negative 7. For this one to equal 0, x would equal 4. Since we're doing geometry, negative 7 wouldn't work as dimensions, so we're going to get rid of that answer. So x has to be 4. They do want the smaller square, so I don't need to do the 4 plus 3. I can keep it strictly as a 4. All right, number 10, we need the vertex of the parabola. So again, negative b over 2a. So I have a negative 3, so that's a positive 3, over 2 times a, which is 1. So that is 3/2. So the x value is 3/2. So now we have to plug it in to get the y value. So we now have 3/2 squared minus 3 times 3/2 plus 2. 3/2 squared gives you 9/4. 3 times 3/2 gives you 9/2 plus 2. We need common denominators, so you have a 4 and a 2, so a 4 would be your common denominator. So we don't mess with the 9. To make the 2 into a 4, we doubled it, so we doubled the 9 to make an 18. This 2 is really over 1, so to make the 1 to a 4, we multiplied by 4, so we do the same thing to 2, which gives us 8. So now we have 9 take away 18, which is negative 9. Negative 9 added to 8 is a negative 1. So negative 1/4 gives you your y value. What is the y-intercept? Y-intercept is when the x is 0. If you put 0 in for x in this equation, you're left with just a 2. So 0, 2. What are the x-intercepts? X-intercepts is when the y is your 0. So 0 equals x squared minus 3x plus 2. So we're going to try to factor it. Two things that add to give you negative 3, multiply to give you a 2. Since you're adding to get a negative and multiplying to get a positive, we know that both of the numbers have to be negatives. Nice thing about 2 is there's only one combination to multiply to get 2. A 2 and a 1. And negative 2 and negative 1 added make your negative 3. Now those aren't your x-intercepts until you solve for them. So in order for this to be a 0, x would have to equal 2. For this to be a 0, x would have to equal 1. So we now have our x-intercepts of 2, 0, 1, 0. Now the easy part is just putting all this on the graph. So we have our easy point 0, 2, which is right there. Then we have our x-intercepts of 2 and 1. So here's 1, here is 2. Then our vertex is at 3/2, which is really 1.5, comma negative 1/4. So 1.5. Then we go down just a little bit to there. Now I only got the left-hand side of my parabola because I have 3 dots I can connect. To get the right hand, we need an extra dot. So remember, your axis of symmetry cuts this right down the middle through the vertex. This point is 1.5 away. So there's another point 1.5 away, which ended you up at 3, 2. That was the extra point you had to find, was at 3, 2. All right, on to the next one, word problem. So you can read it. This represents the height of your ball above the ground in feet. And then as a function of time in seconds, it says how long will the catcher have to get it in position to catch the ball before it hits the ground, round to the nearest second. So if we look at this, this is not in the correct format. So let's rewrite it as b of t equals negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 3.5. So now we've written it in the correct format. From here, it says how long will the catcher have to get in position to catch the ball before it hits the ground? Well, if it hits the ground, we know what the height is. The height has to equal 0. So we're doing 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 80t plus 3.5. Because if we think about the ball, this is a negative parabola or frowny face. The ball hits the ground. At the end over here, it's x-intercept. I don't think anyone would try to factor this or complete the square, so we'll use the quadratic formula. So this is going to become, your b value is 80, so negative b is negative 80, plus minus square root, b squared, which is 80 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times c, which is 3.5, all over 2 times a, which is negative 16. So now we do the order of operations. We do 80 squared And 80 squared gives us 6,400. Then here, we're going to multiply negative 4, negative 16, and 3.5, which gives us 224. Negative times a negative is a positive. That's why it's an addition problem. Add that to 6,400, and we get 6624. So, now we have negative 80 plus minus square root 6624 all over 2a. The a value was negative 16, so 2 times a gives you a negative 32. So we have a negative 32 on the bottom. So now we just have to put it into our calculators and use the one that actually makes sense. So if I do negative 80 minus the square root of 6,624 divided by negative 32, it gives me a positive answer, which is approximately 5. The other one, if we did negative 80 plus the square root of 6,624 and divided by negative 32 would give us a negative answer. And you can't have negative time, so 5 would be the only one that actually makes sense. Then on to our almost last question. We have to take this picture and put it in either to vertex or standard form. Might as well do the easy one, which is vertex form. So the vertex is located at 3, negative 4. So all we have to do is start off with the standard format, which is y equals a, x minus h squared plus k. So this becomes y equals a. This says minus the x value of the vertex. So the x value is 3, so we have to put in minus 3. And then it says plus k, so we use the exact value of the y value, which is negative 4. So we put a minus 4. Then from here, we're almost done, except we can't assume a is 1. We've got to make sure it is. So we need to plug in a point to solve for a. So let's pick an easy point. I'm going to pick the X-intercept, which is 1, 0. So I'm going to take 1, 0 and plug it in. So y is 0. Don't know what a is yet. X is 1. So 0 equals a. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4. So now to solve for a, we get rid of that minus 4 by adding it to both sides. So I have 4 equals 4a. And so yes, again, this time if we divide both sides by 4, we get a equals 1. Since we know a is equal to 1, we can rewrite the formula as just x minus 3 squared minus 4. And now for the last question. We have someone hitting a ball into the air. Here's the equation of the height. What is the highest point in feet? The highest point would be your vertex. So we have to find the vertex. That's all this question word problem really is. It's just saying find the vertex of this problem. So we start off with negative b over 2a. So negative b is negative 60. 2 times a, that's 2 times negative 16. So we have negative 60 over negative 32, which gives us 1.875. So all we got to do now is plug this into the formula and do the order of operations. So h equals negative 16 times 1.875 squared plus 60 times 1.875 plus 3. So if we do the order of operations, we're going to square the 1.875 first. So we square it, which gives us this number. We can't round this number. We never round until the end. So it's negative 16. Now we can multiply what the 1.875 squared was. So times negative 16. So now we're at negative 56.25. We can do the multiplication here, which is 60 times 1.875, which is 112.5. So plus 112.5. And then we have a plus 3. So now we just got to put it all in. So negative 56.25 plus 112.5 plus 3. That is your y value. So 59.25. So the point up here, it took 1.875 seconds to get there. And now we know how tall it was, or how high it was at 59.25. So your final answer is 59.25. And that is the last question on that one.